A pioneering team coach and military trained leader who's been reshaping how I think about teams, especially sales teams, because they're not teams at all. He helps very complex organizations build cohesion, performance, where everybody else just sees chaos. He's the author of my new favorite book, Extra Dependent Teams, and he's a black belt in decoding organizational dynamics. Welcome to Leadership That Sells. This is the podcast that helps you lead first and sell more. And that's because most sales teams aren't really teams. They're what I call teams in parallel. And most managers are still leading them. They're leading a football team, when in reality what they have is a team of Olympic sprinters. And that mismatch is at the root of some of your biggest problems. Coaching doesn't land. Pipeline reviews feel like interrogations. A players who operate as lone wolves. What we've done is build up a leadership power-up for your managers. It's not another heavy training manual. It's a light, fast reset that just gives them a simple model to lead the team they actually have. We teach them to set the target with clarity, build the flag with shared identity, and then just hand over the map, and you coach with true autonomy. If you're ready to fix the model, grab our free parallel team playbook. It's short, sharp, and built for senior leaders, and you can find it at the Practical Leadership Academy. With that said, the man behind this all, thank you, David Kesby, for joining me.
Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast with you.
Well, I'm delighted that you're here, frankly. I mean, this really crystallized a lot of the thinking and the disasters in my leadership career. And the amount of highlighting and stuff that's going on in here is just tantamount to exactly what I think about it. I pulled out so much value from this, and I can't thank you enough for the work that you've evidently put into this.
I'm delighted because sales is such an obvious place for applying that thinking, and yet I so often come across a sort of a fixed tradition of the way that sales works that I find it difficult to say, do you know, what you're looking at isn't what you're trying to describe. And so, you know, if I helped you to understand and see what's right in front of you, then you might come to some conclusions about, actually, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be doing something completely different.
We shouldn't be doing this. We should be doing something completely different. And by the way, what's that at the end of my face? You know, it's not quite as plain as the nose in the end of your face, but if you are at all reflective about your performance as a leader, you reflect upon how you've been taught to lead, and then upon how the performance that the team that you're trying to lead actually does or does not evolve because of what you do. And if there's a disconnect, as there is if you're a sales leader trying to manage things in the good old-fashioned way, you have to find something else. And I fell into pretty much every single trap that you dissect in your book, and kind of fell out of it, and kind of did many of the things that I found started to resolve many of the problems. But when you go through and you detail exactly where you've got your data, how you did the research, what came out of this, I'm there ticking the boxes one at a time, going, I did that, oh God, that was me. You look at the bad case studies and you're thinking, that was my case, that was the wrong case study, yeah. And the trail of bodies in my history of leadership, I continually apologize if you're listening to me and it was me who did that to you. I'm so sorry. The first thing, David, how do you, when you go into an organization and you're talking to somebody, what is the first sign or the set of signs that you see that your team that you think you have isn't actually functioning as one?
So the first sign is when somebody starts moaning about the team.
That's all the time.
But in a way that's disrespectful, there's lots of ways that's finger pointing. That can come from a line manager. It can come from a team member. Those sorts of things are typically straight away. I'm going, I could either agree with them and build rapport, but I'm straight away out of rapport with everybody else because this is the only, or I can sort of open my organizational coaching eyesight and say, everyone here is a player. I'm talking to one of them, but this person and is sharing their view on things. But I know that it's only as good as the part they play in the organization. And what's really interesting about culture is, of course, to understand culture in an organization, you have to sort of have a sense of lots and lots of people. Okay. And at the same time, one person can represent the culture of an organization. So straight away, you're looking at an individual and some kind of interesting perspective on the culture. Because if they're able to go around pointing fingers at stuff, then that's normal. That's likely to be a degree of normal. If they think it's okay to tell me that where the other people are going wrong, then it's culturally normal. So straight away, I'm going, okay, so there's lots of things going on here straight away. So I think that's the starting point. They can be speaking for, say, I don't know, 20 seconds, and I'm going, okay, I can see what's going on to some extent, you know.
I think when I get to talk to anyone who says my sales team's no good, right? And you hear that. He says, well, I can't hire well. We've never seen this. The sales leader's no good, or the sales team's no good. We're just not. And then there's one of two things going on. It is either it's a leadership problem, or it's a product market fit problem. And there's a really simple diagnostic, and it's a historical bit. Has it always been bad? Yes. Okay. Always. It's your product. Your product, nobody wants it. You're not selling something people value, whatever. If it's got better, got worse, if there's been a dynamic, it's leadership. That's it. It's dead easy. How you fix that, however, is an entirely different conversation. Yeah. I think picking the difference between the two, it's a foundational, organizational, you're not selling something people want to buy thing, or your product has moved out of fit. People don't want it anymore, if that's historical. But if it's this dynamic thing that's changed, it's typically a people thing. There's a leadership thing. There's a challenge there. And yeah, I like your argument, which says, yeah, you're representing the culture.
I mean, I'd add one more thing, which is that very often it turns into, Dave, my team isn't a team.
Yeah.
And I might be coaching someone in their leadership or management or whatever it might be, and they'll say, problem is, Dave, my team isn't a team. And in that phrase, you've got the potential for a solution, but you've also got an inherent problem, which is that they've used the word team twice, but in two different ways.
Yeah.
And so part of my work to try to understand teams more, I came out of the army, okay, having led multiple teams, you know, from, say, I don't know, relatively small teams to teams as large as, say, 36, you know, 236. In different places. And I was in the paratroopers, you know, so I was, you know, they were high performing teams.
Hurling yourself out of an aircraft. Okay.
Yeah. And stuff like that. And they were fine doing that, but they were most potent when they were on the ground. They weren't potent in the air. They were clumsy in the air. They just held on for dear life. But when they're on the ground, they were absolutely potent. And that's why I joined them, because I thought I want to be with the most potent people on the ground, you know, the guys. And they were both fantastic to lead and really difficult to lead because of the nature of that. You know, it was a hang on for dear life. But I came out thinking I knew about teams, went into a consultancy and started reading and realized I didn't know about teams. I understood the way that the army did teams. And so whilst I thought I was an expert or, you know, I had experience, I only had a particular experience. And whilst that has some application, it doesn't have universal application. So I started to understand, you know, I started to understand, if say my team isn't a team, there's a unit and a dynamic going on there. And so learning about teams, there was all talk about the teams have to be interdependent. And so I really learned that. And of course, that's the difference. But then I started to realize that some teams weren't interdependent. And the most obvious one was the one I was in. It was like, we're talking to each other as if we want to be interdependent. But if I thought about it, if I actually think about it, we never work together.
Yeah.
Because we don't depend on each other.
Yeah.
How does this team? I felt very strongly about the team. I had a strong identity with it, there was a strong, really good familiarity. We really gelled together when we got together. We're a consultancy team developing, doing leadership development, but we were doing lots of different similar work, but in different clients. So we never worked together. So I'm going, what is going on here? For us to feel like a team, but we're not a team. And that, by the way, feels very similar to some of the clients who are saying to me, Dave, my team isn't a team. And I'm going, I know what you're talking about because I'm experiencing it myself. My team isn't a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of that around.
Do you know, when I look at the sales teams that I engage with and the sales teams that I have led, and even the sales teams that I do currently lead in the role that I have, there are a series of failure points that you just experience again and again and again. And the phrase "my team isn't a team," I think it's right up there. And I think it's that you break that out. You say, well, why is your team not a team? Well, right, I've got a list of them. And if I give you the list, can we go through them and you just see if we can fix them, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the first...
Well, I'm not sure about fixing, but I'll explain them. Okay, I'll explain.
Let's do that.
We can start to think about why is that a problem? So I think there's two things here. One is what is going on that makes that a problem?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second thing, what one or two things could you do?
Right. So every salesperson, every sales leader will know, will identify with the top performers delivering most of the revenue.
Yeah.
So you've got 10 people in your sales team, 3 of them will be delivering all the revenue, 3 or 4 of them will be delivering a little bit more, and 3 or 4 of them will be doing not very much indeed. Okay. So and you're trying to get everybody to come together, work together, share their performance. However, the very top performers just tune out, check out. They resist everything you can think about in terms of like coming together as a team. And you're trying to get them to teach or to share what they're doing, and it doesn't work. So you get this A player problem.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on there. So first of all, the incentive for the sales manager to bring them all together is because the sales manager benefits from the combined output sales of everyone. So he or she is the most incentivized for that dynamic to happen, people to come together. You then want your A player to share their secrets, the thing that makes them special, the thing that gets them to the top of the board. If you're going to do that, what causes they're going to be really resistant to sharing that if you then create a dynamic of competitiveness between each and every salesperson. Yeah. So if you have a leaderboard or anything like that, where they're at the top and showing at the top, they are incentivized to hold on to their secrets. They're incentivized to keep their shortcuts, the way they do things, the things that are in their own little playbook, their notes, all of those things they keep to themselves. All their reflections, those are secrets that they hold themselves. And the way that team is set up, because of that leaderboard, because of the way that competition is created, and between salespeople, it takes very, very little, if nothing, to create competitiveness between them.
Okay. It's natural.
So it's almost natural.
Good point.
It's almost natural. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be natural, but I think that everybody thinks it's there because that's what they experienced, and they aren't going to change that. Because part of it is because they believe it makes the difference. Because why wouldn't it? I got the top of my leaderboard, and I was promoted off the result of that because I did well. Everybody else can be like me. Well, in the act of leadership, one of the first things to realize is nobody else is like you. You are unique. Yeah. So trying to duplicate yourself is really a hiding to nothing. But there is, so that's what's going on. That's what causes the tension between that desire for the top performer to say, look, put a presentation together, tell us what you're doing, all right, tell everyone else what you're doing, so it makes my life easier and they can up their game. And then they go, I'm too busy, I can't do. I know you're doing it. And so the line manager goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'm pretty good at this, I'll do it myself. Of course, they're not nearly as in touch with everything as the other ones. And so they do a half-hearted attempt. They try to do it and be generous and stuff like that, but they're not supported by their high-flying players. So they're undermined by that. That goes on. Okay. If anyone's listening to this and they recognize that dynamic, okay.
It's where you are.
So the question, what do you do? Well, the key to it is to recognize that competitiveness in salespeople is fine. I would encourage it to be targeted against the competition, not each other. So there'll be enough competition out there. Target that competitiveness with the competition, but collaborate, and the collaboration should be around learning together. So this is really a sort of at the heart of this, where you have people in a team, like in a sales team, when you're trying to collaborate together in a traditional, conventional way, when you go, do you know what? I don't want to line manage everyone individually, like a hub and spoke. I think there's a potential for synergy here. The team can be better together. Okay. Almost every book will tell you how to do that. And that is through interdependency. Any book that talks about increasing synergy will be interdependency.
Totally.
Interdependency requires different skills, different capabilities. And this is where it gets confusing, because the difference, if you're looking for difference, you can find it. In any walk of life, you get 8 to 10 individuals in a room and you'll notice all the differences, okay? Because everyone has different personalities and everyone's, as I said before, everyone's unique, right? So you can say, oh, that person's left-handed. They're different from that right-handed person. You're going, okay, but you're all salespeople. The most important dynamic that's going on here is you all do the same job.
The similarities are more important
than
the differences.
And this is why the book is subtitled, Realizing the Power of Similarity, because it is saying...
Available at bookshops near you. Worth a buy, ladies and gentlemen.
It's available on all online stores, okay? But the cheapest you'll get it, and I'm going to plug it, is on Routledge. So Routledge is part of Taylor and Francis Group, and I will give you a discount. This year, and it is 25 AFLY3. Okay, I'm sure
you'll be in the description below.
Thank you, Paul. And it gives you, I don't know, I can't remember how much it is off, but actually right now, Routledge is by far the cheapest place to get it.
Good.
And you can get an extra amount off. Now I've lost my
lost your train of thought, right? Well, because you were leading into some of the other aspects of my list here. So you've got the A players who quite simply don't want to join in the team, right? They're not interested in joining in the team because they're doing their own thing. They don't want to share their secret sauce, okay?
Because you've created the conditions for that.
Exactly, because you've created the conditions for that. And then you're spending your time as a manager trying to motivate the middle 60% of your team while this top 10, 20% is running on rocket fuel.
Yeah.
And how do I feed my 60%? What's this? There's a huge motivation gap here, right? So that's another challenge.
So I work not with a salesperson, but somebody in a team like this. And I said, how do you run your meetings? And he said, well, first of all, we have a check. We hear everyone's update. In a sales, what are you currently working on? Yeah. Where are you in time? Where are you in line with your targets? Okay. When you do that, you armor everyone. Everyone is proving themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. They prove that they can do this, that they're on target, or they certainly don't. They want to be invulnerable. They want to be armored to the teeth because they're doing it in front of everyone. And all of their colleagues, they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to be caught short. They don't want to be shamed. They don't want to be shown up, especially with if the top players are there, And then and so the next question is, right, so let's learn together. But what you've first of all done is armored them. So they're proving, the way I describe it is they are proving and they're not ready to improve.
Yeah.
So straight away, they are limited in what they're doing. So when you use the meeting for performance management, basically, you stifle collaboration. Now, I would reverse that. So typically what you do is you have the performance in the room together, and then you might do one-to-one coaching, which is sort of more developmental or something like that, skills and what have you. I would reverse that in a sales team. I'd have the performance management by one-to-one. You can have a really safe conversation, one-to-one. They're telling you what they're doing, the mistakes they're making and things like that. And you can have that conversation. You can say to them in private, you're performing, you're not performing.
Yeah.
But you also learn a lot about what everyone is doing in the team. And so you're aware of the strengths and the weaknesses in the team, and you can understand a bit more about what your top performer's doing. Interestingly, so often when you're doing the top performer, you go, that person doesn't need managing, so I don't need to do a one-to-one. Yes, you do need to do a one-to-one because you need to understand what's making them so successful.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and paying attention to everybody is just, everybody gains momentum from that and motivation from just being paid attention to. So having learned of that in a one-to-one, you then bring it in, and then turn the group environment, the team environment, into much more of a collaborative learning environment. But this is, I was talking to somebody only the other day about this. The challenge isn't to say, right, by the way, spend half an hour saying, by the way, this is the last thing I did, and was really successful. And if I'm really successful, and if you do what I do, then you'll be successful too. That's a real telling type of technique. That's a push. That's a I know better than you type technique. That's more proving. Okay. To get into an improving, vulnerable, trustworthy, psychologically safe environment, which has proven to be where high performing teams are created in the first place and end up as well. You need to go in with vulnerability. So this is a place where you learn and you bring a problem. Well, there's two things. One is you open up and say what success have you had, and ask them why. What made it a success? Share that,
Dissect
and that
it.
starts.
Really dissect it. Yeah.
Sorry again.
Really dissect it. Dissect.
Yes,
yeah.
It's not to say proving. It's to say, look, you spend 1 minute. I did this. I was feeling really good. What did you feel really good about? What made it a success versus something you did the week before, for instance? How did you do that? What technique did you use? Blah, blah, blah. So you're learning from those successes just as a starting point, but it's an entree. It's almost like an entree because everyone shares something about themselves. Even you don't just focus on the high performers. You also focus on the people who are new to the team, who are just learning, because their success opens a door on the history, on onboarding, on integration, and all of that sort of stuff. And then you can move into a place which what problems are you experiencing?
Yeah.
And the problem is not a problem that you have an answer to. It's a problem that you don't have an answer to, which you can call on the collective intellect and experience and practice of the team to bear down. That is where synergy in this type of team happens. You can say, well, I've done it this way and I've done it that way. Or you say, feels to me like this person is at the heart of the issue here. Or it sounds like you're using this technique, which is better for this type of product and this technique for that type of product. Really? I was just using that one, blah, blah, blah. So straight away, you're into an exchange, a really constructive exchange between the people on the team. So that's what I do with collaboration. And then the collaboration is it forced? It's you're inviting them. They get reward. Everybody gains from that because everybody has similar problems. And this is a technique that I've stolen from elsewhere. And it's about 60, 70 years old.
Yeah.
And it's a proven technique. It's one of the few sort of techniques for collaborative learning that has lasted for decades.
Because then you've convinced the team that their team meetings are no longer pointless.
Yes.
Because most team meetings for salespeople are completely pointless.
I've heard
Unless
them
you're,
being called to, I've heard them being referred to as the prison.
yes, yes, absolutely. You're sitting there waiting to be released.
Yes.
You put your armor on so you're not going to get beaten up,
Yeah.
right? And then you're waiting to be released
Yeah.
because it's horrendous.
Yeah.
You're sitting there waiting for your turn to be beaten up.
And you go home all that long 2 hour drive or whatever it is
Yeah.
or longer, feeling worse than when you
Yes.
went.
Yes. Yes.
And you take the rest of the month to pick yourself up again.
And you look forward to the next one. I mean, what? Really? No. I think most of the team meetings, the best ones are the status updates that could finally have been an email.
Yes.
Okay? The worst ones are when you are interrogated. They're interrogating the person and not the data. And it is entirely the other way around.
Yes.
You want to interrogate the data, not the person. It is the case. It's not, well, why did you fail so miserably?
Yes.
It's, okay, data says X at this point. This is what the normal is. You're outside the norm. The likelihood of this is going to close is low, in my opinion. Can you convince me otherwise? That's based on data, based on information. You're interrogating a CRM. I'm looking at a spreadsheet, right? And then the spreadsheet relates to your performance because it's a performance profession, which we can help you work on. But you want to work in something like that in private. You know, you
Yes, I would
criticize in
recommend that.
private, praise in
Definitely
public.
one-to-one. Absolutely one-to-one.
Yeah.
It's a safer environment, much more psychologically safer. People are going to own up to more.
Yeah.
And you'll, as a line manager, as a sales manager, you'll be able to probe into it in a much more constructive way.
And then the thing, as a sales manager, as the leader of this team, and actually the wonderful thing that I found is that it's not just sales teams. Sales teams, you've got teams of priests, you get teams of teachers, people who do all these things similarly, but not together. Anyway,
Yes.
that's another podcast. So you're turning the pointless team meeting into a very meaningful team collective. I love my team meetings because we get to learn so much about stuff. I am now motivated because I am learning from people who are younger than me, older than me, better than me, worse than me, because they've all done something well, done something badly. You are collaborating. You're, rather than being forced into this joint working continuum of disaster, which is inherently inefficient and slows everything down. You're leaning into the things that actually add value to you as an individual contributor in this extra dependent team.
Yeah.
Right. Last thing, because I think we've covered the other ones, is culture. You spend all your time trying to build this happy, lovely culture. You've got the biggest foosball table in the business right there. You've got a happy hour, but nothing you're doing is actually translating into performance. Culture. It's just a buzzword, right?
Well, I started at culture, didn't I? Right at the outset. It's inherent in everything. You know, as Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it really does. You can put together a fantastic plan that makes sense. If the culture doesn't allow it to happen, it will never happen. So the culture of, it's a mindset and it's a skill set. So mindset, the growth mindset, the sort of the psychological safety. If you don't feel safe, you don't feel like there's purpose, if you've got nowhere to aim for, that mindset is going to be undermined and your skill set's going to reflect it. But however much hope and optimism you have, if you don't have the skill set to actually deliver that, you're not going to go anywhere. If that skill set is based on the past, the way that you've always done it, which is where the culture kicks in, then you can change your mindset all you like. You won't come through with it. And one other thing about culture is identity. And I know that you pay attention to this, Paul, and I think it's one of the key things that's just not paid enough attention to is identity. And identity, I'm a salesperson. I am a salesperson. I represent the organization. I am at the front of this organization. It lives or dies off what I do. That's not just a role. That is a sense of self. So identity in these sales teams, and some of them have really big egos, and some of them need because that's the nature of the work they do. But identity is formed through that experience and is at the heart of that culture, that localized culture within the team, but also how that team represents the organization. You know, when I do my coaching, for instance, and I work and I've set up and led teams of consultant coaches, i.e. people who actually sell coaching and they're coaches themselves. And my encouragement all the time was, don't try and sell it in a sales way, sell it in a coaching way, because that is the product. They are buying you. You are the product here. And this is what you're doing. So the culture and it needs to be all alignment with the product, with the organization as a whole. And you represent that at the sharp end, as it were.
So then let's say we've got this sales team that we're trying to pull together.
Mm.
We're trying to create this culture of performance. We're trying to create a learning culture.
Yeah.
We are pulling people together for team events that are meaningful for them. We're no longer beating them over the head, but we're interrogating them in private and learning together in public. We are being very clear about what they need to do. How do we then get everybody to salute the same flag? What's that? How do we build that identity?
When you say salute the same flag, what's on your mind?
Well, you've got the idea that we want to have, we want to have people come together and forge a common identity around common practices and common standards, not necessarily around the common goals.
And there's alignment, and perhaps that's what you're talking about, is having alignment. So there's who owns the practice in a sales team? I think everybody does. In this extra dependent team, who owns the practice? They are collectively owned. They are they are shone most brightly by the people who demonstrate what it is to be a really great practitioner. So your star performers. So they are the people to emulate. If you want to share that, then and copy that, then getting them to share to brighten everyone else's, to make them more shiny is the key to it. And that's where that learning is. But I think the alignment is on those standards and common practices. And common practices, I call them skills, bills, thrills, and spills. Okay, so skills are, the skills you do, competencies and stuff like that. But the bills are the equipment you use. How do you use your email? How do you use your sales, the processes, for instance, that you might follow, or and things like that, and skills is also jargon and short and language and things like that. But so bills is your uniform or the car you drive and stuff like that. It all shapes that identity, and then spills and thrills are your successes and failures. There's your, the highs and lows of the journey. They are stories, they are myths, they are legends, they are real experiences that you take forward, and and all those three things, 4 rhyming words, they form that collective identity individually and collectively within. But they can't be just identified individually. They have to be shared collectively. So all of those 4 things create that shared repertoire. The shared repertoire, that common practice that is going on. It's not just a competency thing. It's not just a job description. It is much more than that. It's much richer, and that's where that identity is formed.
Okay. On your website, you have a team dependency diagnostic. How could a sales manager use that tool to do exactly what we're talking about? Build more identity, build cohesion, understand their team.
Yep, there's a light version and there's a paid for version, full version. The light version is free. You can use it as many times as you like. Use it to diagnose your team. It'll tell you how much interdependency is going on, how many extra dependency is going on in your team, and what its functionality is, which is really around how much collaboration is going on, how much blame is going on, how much vulnerability is going on, that sort of thing. Okay. And that will give you a pretty good readout in terms of whether you are trying to make it interdependent or whether you're actually liberating the capability of extra dependency, which is my encouragement in most sales teams. I would be very surprised if I could find an interdependent sales team. I'm expecting them all to be, on the whole, 80% or so extra dependent.
And if you had to make one change for a manager to start on this journey, once they've realized that, oh gosh, I don't actually have a team, I have a team.
Yes.
My team isn't a team, it's a team. Yeah, okay. Where do I start? What's the
first? So the first thing, well, actually, that's straight away. You've done the first thing, which you've noticed what is right in front of you, what as it is, rather than how you would want it to be, okay, or how everybody around you is telling you it ought to be. Notice it for what it is. So you've done the hard work if you notice that. If you don't notice it and you only see what you've ever seen, you haven't done the hard work, okay? And that's where the team diagnostic will come in. It will help you to start to see it. And there's some quite useful words in there you get a report at the end, which will give you some nice words. And then the first thing is to what would be the first thing to do? I think start afresh. Start having realized that there's a lot of things that you've been doing. I think that you went through that experience, Paul. I mean, you might be able to answer this better than me, in terms you go, oh, having realized that, you sort of have to go, oh, I realize now why those things didn't work. And I now have to start applying that new thinking in a fundamentally new way. Totally. I mean, what would your answer to that question be?
I would say that first place I would start would be with the highest value conversation you have every week that you should be having, which is with your one-to-ones. And I would take my one-to-ones and I would stop having a pipeline review and a one-to-one at the same time and recognize that if you mix them both, you get the worst of both, separate the performance out from the interrogation of the data, right? Just split them out. Have two conversations. The data one is the big one, because that's your result. You don't make the result, you all get fired. The performance bit is building for tomorrow, and that's retaining your top performers, retaining all your performers. It's building for tomorrow, and that's a smaller conversation, but it has to be structured. It has to be well thought through. But the basic thing to do is to think. So I would start there. Start with that one-to-one, because you've got very, very few levers you can pull, and that's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah. And then, okay, so my second step would be change your team meetings.
Yeah.
Stop talking about numbers and it's performance, and start talking about the current problems that everyone can contribute to. Ideas for. Totally. So it turns into a learning space.
Totally. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I think we have got a lot of food for thought there. Again, I can't recommend this enough. I mean, I've taken an awful lot from this. I'm going to wave it again. It's Extra Dependent Teams by David Kesby, Realizing the Power of Similarity, published by Routledge. There's a link down there in the description with a magnificent discount given by the author himself. It's as good as having a signed copy. Yes, David Kesby, thank you very, very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you, Paul Morton. I really appreciate it. And good luck with your application of this as well. I'm very much supportive of it.